Hi friends, a big welcome to the kitchen. Today I wanted to shoot a video around a little bit of a different topic. I've been sharing my experience about iron intake and trying to up my iron intake a little bit here in shorts as well as on Instagram. And I found that it was helpful for some people. So I wanted to share kind of a summary of my experience here as well. So if you're plant curious and you're concerned about iron intake on a plant-based diet, or you're vegan or plant-based and you experience issues with your iron intake, please keep on watching. Let me give you a little bit of a background so you know what I'm talking about. Why iron intake? Why am I bothered? I did my blood test around 1 month and a half ago, and my hemoglobin has always been low. In short, for men, the normal range of hemoglobin in your blood, which does not equate to iron, of course, but can be linked to the iron deficiency, is between 13.5 to 17.5. For women, it's between 12 to 15.5 grams per deciliter. I'm at around 10.5. I was around at around 10.5 when I was last checking, and I never ever crossed the 12 grams per deciliter mark, only when I was taking supplements. And this was on a plant-based diet, by the way. I've been exclusively plant-based for around 1.5 years by now, and previously I have been plant-based for around 1 year. So this is a separate experience and a topic for a different discussion. There can be multiple reasons why you can be anemic or have low hemoglobin, and not all of these reasons are related to your diet. You might have internal bleeding, you might have some blood loss related to parasites, as well as you might have other health conditions. So please check with your doctor if they see anything wrong going on with your labs. As you may know, there are different types of iron. One is heme and one is non-heme iron. The latter one is mainly coming from plant-based sources, while heme iron, hemoglobin, is coming from animal sources. There are multiple discussions around heme versus non-heme iron and their absorbability. In omnivores, heme iron typically constitutes around 10% of overall iron. However, it constitutes around 40% of the absorbed iron. So heme iron does have this advantage of absorbability, but it also might have some side effects, especially if used from the supplement. But here we are not going to talk about absorbability because you cannot absorb what you do not consume. So let's focus first on how much you should eat and how you can get there. Your iron requirements are going to depend on your age, your gender, if you're pregnant, getting ready to conceive, or if you're lactating. As well as that, some factors like lifestyle can relate to your iron consumption and how much iron you need, because athletes who sweat might require a little bit more iron than regular people. Women in reproductive age generally do require more iron than men. Let's say the lower threshold for women in reproductive age is around 18 milligrams of iron per day, and for males this ranges at around 8 milligrams per day. There also have been recommendations from the Institute of Medicine that vegetarians should consume around 1.8 times more iron than non-vegetarian due to the iron absorption issues, which will bring us to around 32 milligrams of iron per day. So let's say I should be targeting between 18 and 32 milligrams of iron. So what were my learnings? I started the week really slow. The first tip that I can give you is, first, you have to measure it. You have to measure what you're eating and consuming right now, or what you were consuming prior to your blood work, to understand what's the difference. How big is the gap that you're trying to cover? And then try to get there. Basically, if you do not measure it, you cannot manage it. Here you can go several different ways. I started off with writing everything down on a paper, like a diary of what I ate and how much iron there is. In this sense, the USDA official website is really helpful. They also have a different section for the legacy foods, which means that it's kind of a statistic about a certain product. So for example, for tofu, you will have the average value of iron content per 100 grams, the minimum and the maximum value. And you will notice that a lot of products have quite a large range of nutrient values, but to start with, go with the averages, it's perfectly fine, I feel. However, if you're cooking recipes and you're not eating raw foods, I would definitely recommend you start using an app. MyFitnessPal is one of the apps that my friend recommended, and then I kind of started my own research on what kind of other apps I might be using, and I ended up with Chronometer. It has a little bit simpler UI compared to MyFitnessPal. Chronometer is a little bit more straightforward, at least for me. It also gives you breakdowns in grams of how much you're consuming, how much you need. You can adjust your daily targets based on your age, based on your gender, and moreover, it gives you a really nice and comprehensive breakdowns of the essential amino acids of how much you're consuming. So you can start seeing which other macro and micronutrients you would like to target in your diet to have a more holistic nutrition. The next piece of advice I could give you is probably you are going to start slow. So start measuring whatever you have right now, and then you'll get the hang of it and get into the process. Just do your research on what kinds of food are rich enough in iron and try to incorporate them in your meals from time to time. I started really slow at around 8 milligrams of iron per day. I think it's fairly easy to hit 8 milligrams. Getting up to 16 milligrams was a little bit harder for me, but lately I've been able to hit 21 milligrams, 22 milligrams of iron per day, and I genuinely do feel a lot better. The third point would be to know your ingredients, to know your products which contribute to your iron intake the most, and group them in different categories, such as your breakfast, your dinner, maybe your snacks. And what I mean by that, probably you don't want to overload yourself with carbohydrates the second half of the day, right? Maybe you don't, maybe you do, I don't know. I'm taking myself as an example. I prefer to eat a starchy or carbohydrate foods in the first half of the day, or let's say until 4 p.m. And then I'm trying to eat more fiber and more protein. If you have a map in your head like that, it's getting easier to understand what kind of foods you could include. So for example, in the morning, you can cook yourself a beautiful, delicious oatmeal that will keep you full until lunch. You can snack on some pumpkin, on sunflower seeds. You can include some walnuts, which are also high in omega-3s. Then in the evening, you can make yourself some tofu scramble with veggies, with kale, and cook it all together. So you get a nice proteiny and also filling dinner. Think about the greens that are high in iron. Think about the beans, legumes, and try to come up with the solutions that you like and with the foods that you really do enjoy. One big point though is going to be our tip number 4 is do expect a lot of food. I'm not a very big eater. It takes some effort to me to eat. And these days I typically skip my breakfast. It's been like that for a while, and I feel like it helps me be productive throughout the day for a little bit longer, so it extends my productive time, and I absolutely love that. But it means that I will have to shift my heavier meals towards the second half of the day, which might not be favorable for some people. So do expect a lot of food, a lot of legumes, a lot of nuts and seeds and all that stuff. It's going to be really filling. If you really do care, please plan it ahead and expect a lot of food. However, I will tell you that I was full every single day when I was hitting my iron target. At the same time, I didn't feel bloated. I didn't feel like I'm overfeeding myself. I felt full, really good full. And the next day, you know what I started noticing is probably I was undernourished in certain nutrients. So I would binge eat prior to that. After I started tracking my iron consumption, I really did stop binge eating on a massive scale, which was a huge benefit for me. And I do think about nutrition in a more holistic way. So once you target your iron, you're probably targeting something else as well. Which brings me to my next point, is that foods that are packed with iron are also packed with other nutrients. Speaking of the whole food matrix, where you take different nutrients for the same food. And actually, I don't believe in targeting a single nutrient in a diet. I don't think it's a good approach overall, but if you do have a problem, you would like to concentrate on it, of course. But I would expect that you will see the increase in the intake of other micro and macronutrients as well, once you start tracking it all and once you start getting the gist of it. At the same time, to me at least, it does speak of the advantage of real food over the supplement, because you're not eating a single nutrient when you're eating some good quality food. However, of course, there might be cases when you would require a supplement. If you're severely anemic, if you're severely undernourished in terms of iron, you might require a supplement, so please do consult the doctor. And speaking of supplements, yes, I would like to target my nutrition first. I would like to make sure that my diet supports my nutritional needs. But if I fail in terms of absorption, because those processes can be quite hard to manage, I would definitely do my second lab test, and I would definitely pick a supplement for myself, which is probably going to be a lower dose supplement. If you're vegan, especially for ethical reasons, do choose the supplement that is vegan iron, and there are supplements like that in the market. So just do pay attention to this, because some of the supplements can apparently come from animal sources. And the last point I really wanted to share with you, I am a big tea and coffee drinker. And this has been like that for a very, very long time. I really like some green tea on my table throughout the day. And we didn't talk about iron absorption in this video. However, if you do care about your iron, you should space out your meals and your tea and coffee consumption so they don't overlap too much. I would say have your meal 1 hour after you have your tea or coffee and 1 hour before that. So there is like a 2-hour window, because tea and coffee are such a big part of the Western culture these days, but unfortunately they do inhibit iron absorption. And let's have a look at the meals that you could cook to support your iron requirements. I would definitely recommend this tofu scramble recipe. It has kale in it, it has bell peppers in it, it's very filling. Tofu, please do select tofu, read your label, and select the tofu that is enriched or fortified with iron. It can be also fortified with calcium. So those are the things that you might be looking at. Tofu can be really nice when it's cooked with a crisp pan. You can also choose softer tofu to create sauces like vegan yogurt and those kind of things. You can cook tofu feta cheese. So there are different varieties of tofu. That's what I'm trying to say. You can choose the one that can suit your taste and suit your needs. Another ingredient and a set of recipes that I love are the recipes that include chickpeas. You can roast them and they're going to be savory and they're going to be a great snack. You can also make a lot of dips with chickpeas, like hummus is one of the main ones, and you can cook different kinds of hummuses, and I will link a couple of recipes down below and probably somewhere around here. Chickpeas and other legumes. Legumes are a great source of iron. You can cook burritos with them. You can cook lentil soups. You can put them in stews. Actually, red lentils are very tiny, and the benefit of lentils is that they're small and they do not require pre-soaking before you cook them. So you can just cook them really fast, under 30 minutes for sure, and they're going to be a great addition to most of the vegetable dishes. Like you can add them to stews, to ratatouille, and they're going to be almost unnoticeable because of the way they disappear in the water. If you're an oatmeal lover, oats are also quite high in iron as well. Make sure to cook them properly. You can add different toppings in there, like sunflower, like pumpkin seeds, like chia seeds, like flax seeds. Preferably do grind the flax seeds because they go out as pretty as they go in, and your stomach is not always able to break down the outer shell of the flax seeds. Which brings me to my next point. There are a lot of nuts and seeds which are really nutritious, relatively high in iron. Pumpkin seeds, the star of this show, sunflower seeds, walnuts, cashews, almonds, you name it, those all are packed with nutrients. However, remember that especially nuts are rather calorie dense. Both nuts and seeds are quite high in fats, mostly unsaturated fats, mono and polyunsaturated fats. So if you're watching your fat consumption or your calorie intake, please do consider tracking those, especially for nuts. They can look like a very tiny amount, but in the end you might end up with a handful of nuts and around 60 grams of them, which will equate to around 300 calories, which you might want to consider if you're tracking your calories. If you're using plant milks, read the label and you may want to choose the fortified ones. Many of them are fortified with iron as well as B12. So do check the label. You can use it during cooking. Also, you can frost many of them and make some really nice beverages, use them in shakes. Of course, feel free to mix and match, adding your seeds to salads, to your oatmeal, cook burrito out of different kinds of beans and legumes, add mushrooms in there. Mushrooms are also great in terms of iron content, and they're really easy to cook. Some of them have really nice texture, like enoki mushrooms, some of my favorites, king oyster mushrooms. You can cook a lot of things with those, including sandwiches, including burgers. I love mushrooms. Mix and match, have foods in different categories that you love, and hit your iron target. And finally, I would just like to share a couple of thoughts. Why not supplements? Well, as I mentioned, first of all, I would like to be able to cover my nutritional needs out of my diet for several reasons. I don't want to target or to take a supplement for a particular nutrient throughout my whole life. If I'm lucky enough and if I'm able to afford different food sources, which is great, which is the privilege that I have. Not everyone has it. Not everyone can absorb all of the iron from food that they need. This is why you need a blood test performed quite regularly. I'm not against supplements, for example, B12. We unfortunately do not have a very reliable source of B12 vitamin in the plant-based diet. Selenium can be often a problem. So you might want to have some tweaks here and there, have the supplement ready in your cupboard, use it from time to time, but do consult with your doctor and of course do your blood work. So this was my personal experience and my personal thoughts on iron intake and iron consumption. I hope this was helpful. In this video, we didn't talk about absorption of iron. Let me know what you think, and if it was useful, please give this video a like. If you liked it, share it with someone who might have problems with anemia and iron intake. If it's beneficial for anyone, I would be so happy, and I will link the recipes which I find to be helpful down below. Also, we'll link down the app that I'm using to track my micro and macronutrients. And on this note, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. And if you feel like supporting this channel, please do subscribe. This means the world to me. Stay healthy, be well, have an amazing day, and I see you sometime soon. Bye.